Devaya. Canto 6, Chapter 17, Mother Parvati curses Citraketu. We're going to start with text 6, and we're going to go to text 9. Text 6, 6:17, 6. Citraketur uvacha Ishaloka Guru Sakshad Dharmam Vakta Shridanam Aste Mukhya Sabhayam Vai Mithuni Bhuya Paraya Chitraketur Uvacha Eshaloka Guru Sakshad Dharmam Vakta Shridanam Aste Mukhya Sabhayam Vai Mithuni Bhuya Paraya. Citraketu said, Lord Shiva, the spiritual master of the general populace, is the best of all living entities who have accepted material bodies. He enunciates the system of religion. Yet, how wonderful it is that he is embracing his wife, Parvati, in the midst of an assembly of great saintly persons. No purport. Text 7. Lord Shiva, whose hair is matted on his head, has certainly undergone great austerities and penances. Indeed, he is the president of the assembly of strict followers of Vedic principles. Nevertheless, he is seated with his wife on his lap in the midst of saintly persons and is embracing her as if he were a shameless, ordinary human being. Purport. Citraketu appreciated the exalted position of Lord Shiva, and therefore he remarked at how wonderful it was that Lord Shiva was acting like an ordinary human being. He appreciated Lord Shiva's position, but when he saw Lord Shiva sitting in the midst of saintly persons and acting like a shameless, ordinary man, he was astonished. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that although Citraketu criticized Lord Shiva, he did not offend Lord Shiva like Daksha. Daksha considered Lord Shiva insignificant, but Citraketu expressed his wonder at Lord Shiva's being situated in that way. Text number 8. Ordinary conditioned persons generally embrace their wives and enjoy their company in solitary places. How wonderful it is that Lord Mahadev, although a great master of austerity, is embracing his wife openly in the midst of an assembly of great saints. Purport. The word Mahavratadhara indicates a brahmachari who has never fallen down. Lord Shiva is counted among the best of the yogis, yet he embraced his wife in the midst of great saintly persons. Citraketu appreciated how great Lord Shiva was to be unaffected even in that situation. Therefore, Citraketu was not an offender. He merely expressed his wonder. Text number 9. Shukadev Goswami continued, My dear king, after hearing Citraketu's statement, Lord Shiva, the most powerful personality, whose knowledge is fathomless, simply smiled. and remained silent. And all the members of the assembly followed the Lord by not saying anything, except Parvati is going to say something. Purport. Citraketu's purpose in criticizing Lord Shiva is somewhat mysterious. It cannot be understood by a common man. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, however, has made the following observations. Lord Shiva, being the most exalted Vaishnava and one of the most powerful demigods, is able to do anything he desires. Although he was externally exhibiting the behavior of a common man and not following etiquette, such actions cannot diminish his exalted position. The difficulty is that a common man, seeing Lord Shiva's behavior, might follow his example, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 3:21. Yad yadacharati shresthas tat tat evetarojana sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. A common man might also criticize Lord Shiva, like Daksha, who suffered the consequences for his criticism. King Citraketu desired that Lord Shiva cease this external behavior so that others might be saved from criticizing him and thus become offenders. If one thinks that Vishnu, Supreme Personality Godhead, is the only perfect personality, whereas the demigods, even such demigods as Lord Shiva, are inclined to improper social affairs, he is an offender. Considering all this, King Citraketu was somewhat harsh in his behavior with Lord Shiva. Paragraph. Lord Shiva, who is always deep in knowledge, could understand Citraketu's purpose, and therefore he was not at all angry. Rather, he simply smiled and remained silent. The members of the assembly surrounding Lord Shiva could also understand Citraketu's purpose. Consequently, following the behavior of Lord Shiva, they did not protest. Instead, following their master, they remained silent. If the members of the assembly thought that Citraketu had blasphemed Lord Shiva, they would certainly have left at once, blocking their ears with their hands. Lessons of etiquette. In the Daksha Yajna situation, when Parvati, that before she was Parvati, Uma, the daughter of Daksha, heard that there was going to be a big festival in Daksha's home or hometown or home place. She wanted to go, big festival. But Shiva advised, not a good idea. This, he's, you'll be unhappy if you go. But she wanted to go, and so he, she went. He didn't restrain. He didn't say further, "Don't go." It was left up to her, and she went. And when she went, you know the story. When she went, there was Yagya prepared to offer offerings to various demigods, but Lord Shiva was not being made an offering. And Sati was the name that she was going by. Sati understood the offensiveness, and so she spoke strongly, and then she acted strongly. And her speaking included this statement that is relevant to this section. She said, "You don't understand the position of Lord Shiva. He is not obliged to follow the various regulations. So, he hangs out with ghosts and hobgoblins, and he's unclean and smears his body with ashes and wears a garland of skulls, and this person isn't worthy of worship." So then she explained what's relevant to here. He whether he follows or doesn't follow. Now, if he does those things, isn't there the tendency, yad yadacharati shesas, that people will follow, smear their body with ashes and not bathe and act weird? And are there people that imitate? Yes. And that's an indication, on the one hand, of their just being like everybody else. They follow what a great person does, but they imitate, so they're not showing proper honor to Lord Shiva. That is, he may do, and we may not do. So that's one of the situations like here, where Chitraketu understands, and he's on the one hand he's complimenting. Who could do what he's doing and not be agitated? It indicates he's above material laws of nature, and he's above the material laws of nature. And then on the other hand, by this behavior, he could induce others to imitate, and that was Chitraketu's concern. And Lord Shiva understood. Lord Shiva, in the first case, in the Daksha case, he was an offender, and in this case, Chitraketu is not an offender. He didn't take offense, and the members of the assembly didn't take offense, demonstrated by their behavior. They understood his intention, therefore they didn't take offense. Again, in friendship, we discussed this yesterday. In friendship, one may say something that in another circumstance where there isn't friendship, one wouldn't say or do. But in friendship, there's an understanding between the two parties that there's no malice. It's a friendly gesture of speech or action, and so no offense is taken. There's many examples, common examples of all of this. So I'm pausing because I'm thinking of some examples of Prabhupada's behavior or Bhaktisiddhanta's behavior with social etiquette. There's a nice example when Bhaktisiddhanta had a policy that he didn't allow people to touch his feet. And it wasn't one Prabhupada taught this to a disciple. When someone touches the feet of a sadhu, they transfer their sinful reactions to the sadhu. But that wasn't the reason that Bhaktisiddhanta didn't allow. He didn't allow because of his quality of humility, a particular kind of humility. Prabhupada, in circumstances, allowed. And then he expressed to one of the disciples, I can't remember which one, he was explaining this to. There's a trick. The sadhu touches the head of the person who touched their feet, and he transfers their sinful reactions back to them. And Prabhupada smiled, and the devotee acknowledged that Prabhupada would do like that. Not always, but so there's etiquettes. And if there isn't observance of etiquette in confidential friendships, it's understood. It's the etiquette rule of common social interaction does not apply in friendship. Like the classic. One of the classics is the Cowherd Boys, and the Cowherd Boys would behave with Krishna the way that one who's the observer of etiquette wouldn't behave because of friendship. And they would, they'd do different things. They would steal one another's lunch bag and, climb on their shoulders and make funny noises. And they would do all kinds of things in play. Of course, children's play and adults' play is a little different, but the principle is there would be offense otherwise. You climb on Krishna's shoulders. That's an offense. But they would do. There was no offense. Krishna didn't take as offense. They didn't mean as an offense. They were, besides their little boys, they were friends. So there's different rules. The main point is there are different rules in friendship. So Citraketu had that relationship of friendship, which is very elevated. And therefore, he exercised some liberty in speaking the way that he spoke. And one could take it as offense, but it wasn't. Shiva just smiled and remained silent. The followers, according to the purport here, they also understood and therefore remained silent because otherwise they would have had another behavior, which is another Vaishnava etiquette point. Supposing one hears vilification of another Vaishnava, it's not something mild. It's something serious. And then there's behaviors that should be exhibited. One of them is mentioned, block their ears and leave. Another is, say something, but not remain silent. Because the remaining silent is one becomes implicated in the offense. But there was no offense because of friendship. and the intention behind the words. So cultured people understand these things, and those that are not cultured, they don't understand these things, and their behavior is something else. So because it's elevated personalities, we can understand what's the culture of an elevated person. Although we're not elevated, we can understand at least in principle, and therefore the pastimes like this are important because it gives us instruction in practical terms about Vaishnava etiquette, proper behavior. It's a big matter, a big item, and of concern. This is me speaking. Of concern is as Kali Yuga progresses, and as the Hare Krishna door remains open, and all kinds of people come in the door. What's going to happen over time? You know, over time. What's the arrangement to give people culture with because as Kali Yuga progresses, culture is going down. It's one of the things we heard yesterday about Vyas. The qualities go down and down and down and down, and so what's to be done? It's certainly those that are not new coming through the door. They have some opportunity and one could say obligation to set the right standard. And sometimes, too often, devotees don't set the right standard. And then persons that come to the door see behaviors and hear speech that's not according to standard. And they're put off and they turn around and walk the other way. It happens. So there's risk and there's risk. So what's is there's we know we're not trying to achieve a risk-free situation, but training and education and being a little serious about the opportunity and responsibility of setting proper standard and understanding the proper standard and essentially hearing something like hearing the text of Srimad Bhagavatam at least gives an opportunity for proper etiquette. No, supposing supposing there was a curriculum, a Vaishnava etiquette curriculum. I'm kind of going off in a different direction. I'll stop. There are besides me, there are persons very concerned about this topic. And as time passes, it's not going to be less important. It's going to become more important because Kali Yuga is progressing and the doors are open. So we need training and education and etiquette and setting the right standard. At least those that are in the we use this word senior, but experienced position, they should behave properly, know what proper behavior is and speech, and conduct accordingly. Even even when tested or challenged by something, how to deal with that. It's a big topic. What's that noise? So we'll carry on tomorrow. Let's see if there's some discussion. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I think this, as I'm thinking about it, I feel like this scene that Lord Shiva openly embracing Mother Parvati in the assembly of sages is certainly very, very, very astonishing. And I see that in each of the three verses Citraketu was speaking, he made this point. In each of the verses, he made this point that this is an open. He openly do this in the midst of the sages, and I mean, if this is a different scenario,
Mm.
for example, Lord Shiva and Parvati embracing each other together in the midst of, say, maid servants, then perhaps the level
Yeah, different.
of astonishment may be less. And yeah, and on the other hand, I feel it's kind of imperative for him to pronounce his observation, uh, so that just as the commentary said, is to prevent people from either uh, misunderstood the Shiva or uh, follow his imitating his behavior
Mm.
for just for their personal sense gratification. And I mean,
And his speaking was appropriate. That's what you're saying.
yeah, because this kind of scenario could not be, if it is not pronounced, then people won't be able to correctly understood it unless they understand how exalted is Lord Shiva is and his consort Parvati. And I think the next verse, Shukadeva Goswami actually acknowledged this. He addressed Lord Shiva as Bhagavan. He said this is the Bhagavan Lord Shiva. He's not an ordinary person that is subjected to the uh, whatever mundane moral judgment. I'm just thinking like how is uh say I remember Srila Prabhupada sometimes mentioned people in India, some certain group of people, they would smoke and they would say this is following Lord Shiva,
Mm.
and that this Srila Prabhupada would say, if they are actually following Lord Shiva, why not drink the ocean of poison first to demonstrate that is the your position. And I think this is important in the sense of keep the sampradaya intact, because just like Srila Prabhupada, he would, uh, although he warned people don't jump straight into Canto 10 to Krishna's Leela,
Mm.
but he also personally wrote Canto 10,
Mm.
try as much as possible he could to present a proper understanding of Krishna, just like how
Exactly.
Citraketu is doing here.
Exactly. And Prabhupada made that statement when the devotees were astonished because Prabhupada gave warning after warning after warning, and then here comes Canto 10, and there's the Rasa Leela in Canto 10. So, you know, then Prabhupada's explanation, why did I do that? Because simplified and proper understanding is necessary, because otherwise people will go to that and misunderstand. So to create the proper understanding, and similarly, of just reading from Vishaka's book, when Prabhupada went to Rishikesh. Rishikesh is a certain type of place where persons not qualified would gather and then do bad stuff. So when Prabhupada went there, his health was very weak, but he did public speaking anyways, daily. And, it was bashing the imitators, and bashing the imitators in Rishikesh. It's risking his life, because these people have resources and followers, but he did it anyways. What to speak of Bhakti Siddhanta? So, and why? It's just so. It's a little bit like your comment. He did what he did. Citraketu did what he did to protect future people from misunderstanding and therefore offending, or for imitating. So there's a purpose behind him speaking the way that he spoke, and it's in other not timid personalities. Then on the other hand, it's easy to 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 imitate such behavior and go around bashing this one and bashing. So how where's the refined line of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate? Same principle. One has to be cultured and understand what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. It takes an elevated soul to have that capacity. Imitation is not good. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, good Maharaj. Um, Chitraketu's this pastimes gave a lot of uh, insights of how we can lead our life. Basically, is from a normal sadhaka perspective. The one which I was contemplating on was how Shiva has responded to this situation. Of um, he maintained silence and
And smile. Both.
both.
Because silence could mean I'm offended, but silence with smile is different.
Yeah, he smiled. Yeah, but he didn't give any immediate reaction.
No.
Nothing. Yeah, it's a lot to learn. That's what I
Yeah, a
just
lot to learn.
so just
Could he be, he could have said something jovial, or, he did what he did.
but again, if we compare to the other situation which earlier was discussed about Daksha,
Actually, yeah.
he was silent initially, but at what point it triggered to get Virabhadra?
Well, it was the immolation of sati. Prior, Lord Shiva just got up and left
Yeah,
because of offensive character and speech. He got up and left. No.
Also, a little question got triggered just as we. So, while a Vaishnava or a senior devotee is being criticized, there are two ways. One, to close ears and get out,
Yeah.
or the one who participates being silent is an offense as well.
Yes.
So,
So then, therefore, say something.
yeah, there are several situations in Bhagavatam, especially what it got in mind was about Bhishma Dev. When Pandavas were criticized, it was a heavy, heavy thing going on, and he couldn't do anything. He didn't say a word, and actually, there was an action, not only words, during in Mahabharata. It's a different instance there, but I'm just giving like, is it like the question really is? I'm trying to structure that question. Like, is it a person should act based on the circumstance, time and
Yes.
circumstance, or
I'll give a practical example. This is, an elderly gentleman that has some affinity for ISKCON, and he established with his own. He was a medical doctor, and with his own savings, he established a place. And then he had expectations, mixed expectations, without going into it. And because he was elderly, he would sometimes grumble, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," a little grumpy. I just yesterday, no, 2 days ago, no, yesterday, no, 2 days ago, a conversation with a, a very refined Vaishnava. And he said, this refined Vaishnava, I told the refined Vaishnava, finally, I put my foot down and said, please don't speak like this. I find it very disturbing. And then there was an apology back. But this refined devotee said, I'm not disturbed because I understand older people get grumpy. Some people have that personality, and older people even more so. So I'm not disturbed by it. But that was nice to know. Still, if he's not disturbed by it, doesn't mean I should remain silent. And in many of the communications, anyway. So it's when to put your foot down, and how to put your foot down, and how to, it's be respectful at the same time, be protective of that person's spiritual welfare, not just shrug your shoulders and say they're old and grumpy. But then you do that too much, and it's not respectful to an older person. So how to, and when, like, there's lessons to be learned,
yeah,
which is your point.
yeah,
And it takes wisdom and maturity, and not imitating, and the sense of being the servant of Krishna and doing for the pleasure of Krishna, or not doing for the pleasure of Krishna, remaining silent for the pleasure of Krishna. And then, when necessary, say something or do something. Anything else? You have something?
So in Daksha's case, Sati was uh, went into fire because after the incident, everything happened. And here in Citraketu, was Is this Chitraketu event happened prior to the mm, Daksha's event?
Yeah, no, because now she's Parvati instead of Sati. It's later. This event is later. She's now the daughter of the Mount Parvat, so she took her birth again. So it's later.
So she took birth again. Both are same. Sati and Parvati are same, but
Same.
okay, she took birth again.
Yeah. Give him the microphone.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. This is off topic, but just
Uh-oh.
it's something lingering. I want to clarify with you.
I don't know if this is the right time. Maybe after.
Okay.
It's there's I'll give you an explanation. Once a week, I give a class to the Chinese devotees, and it's like a popcorn machine. So I have to have a rule. And the rule is on topic, please. And then the little thing that goes along with it is several times, not all the time, but several times, I heard Prabhupada ask a question, is this related to our topic? And then they would say, no, it's off topic. Then Prabhupada would say, something along the line of, if we go in this direction, then what we've just spent half hour, 45 minutes discussing will be lost. So then he just put it, he paused on responding to the off topic question because it would distract attention from the main message. So I'm fine hearing something. It happened last night. The brahmachari that was there asked a question that was off topic, but he came after class and asked me the question off topic. Which reminds me, I'm supposed to do something in relation to that question. So after, it's okay.
Guru Maharaj, you hit a point of etiquette, and you also went through how it will be go forward. A simple question, like maybe already the seniors were thinking. Within this discussion, where how Chitraketu has addressed the situation, right? Like he had that liberty of that friendship with Lord Shiva,
Yeah.
but at the same time, did he cross, like, for example, the etiquette wise, what is his intent? What is his,
Well,
how he,
that's very clear. You're specific in this case, but you're taking it, abstract and say, before we speak or do, what's the intention?
yeah,
That's the lesson.
that's
That's
a
what you're
lesson,
doing.
yeah. And to whom he is speaking to.
He's speaking directly. He's speaking for everyone's hearing, but he's appreciating the and finding astonishing at the same time, and that's noted in these purports. He's not. He's recognizing his exaltedness, and he's expressing his exaltedness, and therefore simultaneously the surprise or the astonishment that he's so exalted, and yet he's doing this.
Yeah.
So it's not vilification. So the purpose, we discussed already. So it's just something that each of us should consider. Like before just because it just happened, before it was short, it was one sentence long, before I wrote to this elderly gentleman that was inclined to bash people. Um, one sentence that just requesting, and please don't do like that. I find it difficult and painful. So please, and I didn't elaborate. He understood because he's a cultured, drumbeat man. And he stopped. He's probably going to do it again because he has a certain nature. But so there was a purpose. It was protecting him foremost. Protecting me, but also protecting him.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Just a clarification, Maharaj. The astonishment part I understood properly. Outpour of appreciation of Chitraketu to Lord Shiva. Is it for the detachment what Lord Shiva has in this action or something else?
I couldn't get it. No, Lord Shiva has detachment. Yes.
Yeah. The appreciation of Chitraketu
Yeah.
was for the detachment nature of Lord Shiva.
Yeah.
And anything
It,
else?
it's stated. Lord Shiva is intelligent. Because he's intelligent, he understood what and why. And therefore he smiled. Now, some people aren't intelligent. But Lord Shiva, is very intelligent and understood. Now, he didn't change his behavior because of the speech. He was continuing with the same behavior. So that's a prerogative of Lord Shiva. It's not a prerogative for others.
Looks like maybe the relationship between Lord Shiva and Chitraketu was so
Intimate.
we could understand from
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
At the same time, the concern of Citraketu that the
It was registered. Subtle.